What experts say about hockey goons, tradition, controversy, and the modern game. The image of the hockey goon, a player whose primary role is to fight or deliver punishing checks, remains one of the sport's most enduring, polarizing, and controversial legacies. From wild 1970s bench-clearing brawls to viral modern-day suspensions, the debate surrounding hockey enforcers is as fierce as ever. As the sport evolves and wrestles with issues ranging from player safety to entertainment value, experts from across the hockey world continue to weigh in on the role, relevance, and future of the so-called goon. Their insights, supported by empirical data, historical perspective, and ongoing shifts in league policy, reveal a nuanced landscape, one that speaks to tradition, strategy, and broader questions about violence in professional sports. Introduction. Few roles in professional sports generate as much controversy and nostalgia as that of the hockey enforcer. Once considered indispensable for both physical intimidation and protection of star players, the goon is now subject to intense debate. With increased scrutiny on concussions, evolving league rules, and changing cultural attitudes toward violence, the presence and necessity of these players are being reassessed at every level of hockey. This article examines what experts say about hockey goons, exploring historical trends, the perspectives of coaches, players, medical professionals, and analysts, as well as the shifting public sentiment that continues to influence how the sport is played and perceived. 2. Background and context. Historical perspective. The role of the hockey goon emerged in the mid-20th century, gaining particular prominence during the 1970s Broad Street Bullies era of the Philadelphia Flyers, known for their aggressive, often violent, style of play. For decades, many teams employed one or more enforcers to deliver checks, intimidate opponents, and engage in fights as a tactical response to physical or dirty play. This strategy was, in large part, tacitly endorsed by the culture of the NHL and its fans. Notable players like Dave "the Hammer" Schultz, Bob Probert, and Marty McSorley became household names as much for their penalty minutes as their actual playing ability. The goon's role was clear: protect skilled teammates from cheap shots and stand up for the team's honor. Key stakeholders, players and teams. Enforcers occupied roster spots, often at the expense of more skilled players, and were celebrated within their teams for their willingness to risk injury for the sake of teammates. Coaches. Some coaches believed enforcers were necessary for policing the game and maintaining order. Fans. Many fans relished the spectacle and considered fighting an integral part of hockey's culture. League officials. Historically tolerant, the NHL's leadership has shifted toward discouraging excessive violence amid pressure from the wider public and health professionals. Medical experts. Doctors and scientists have become increasingly vocal about the long-term health consequences of repeated head trauma, questioning the ethics of allowing fighting in hockey. Current challenges and opportunities. The modern NHL has undergone significant transformation. Emphasis on speed, skill, and analytics. Stricter penalties and suspensions for fighting and dangerous hits. Greater awareness of chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, and other injuries. Leagues at all levels face the challenge of balancing tradition with player safety, entertainment value, and ethical considerations. 3. Main arguments. Supporting evidence and data. A broad consensus among experts supports the idea that the pure goon, a player whose primary purpose is to fight, has become less relevant in modern hockey. According to statistics from hockeyfights.com and the NHL, fights per game have fallen steadily since 2000. During the 2018-2019 season, the fighting rate was less than 0.2 per game, a significant drop from more than 0.6 per game in the early 2000s. A 2020 study published in the journal Neurology found a notable correlation between repeated head trauma among former enforcers and increased rates of depression, addiction, and cognitive decline. Daneshvar et al., 2020. Meanwhile, the NHL maintains no formal ban on fighting, though penalties and suspensions have increased substantially. Expert perspectives. Medical professionals. Dr. Charles Tater, a renowned Canadian neurosurgeon, has argued there is no place for fighting in hockey. The risks to brain health are clear and present. CBC News, 2018. League executives. NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman has publicly acknowledged the health risks, yet maintains, the fans, the players, the league, this is part of the DNA of the sport, even as the role diminishes. Players. Former enforcer George Parros, now heading the NHL's Department of Player Safety, stated, "The job has evolved. There's no room for players who can't contribute with skill. Fighting is part of the game, but not its focus." Many coaches, including John Cooper of the Tampa Bay Lightning, have shifted toward recruiting versatile players with both skill and physicality, rather than pure fighters. Case studies. The decline of enforcer careers. Notably, the tragic deaths of former NHL enforcers like Derek Bugard, Steve Montador, and Wade Billack sparked renewed scrutiny of the role. After extensive research, experts such as Dr. Anne McKee found widespread CTE in the brains of former fighters, The New York Times 2015. Skill replacing brawn. The evolution of players like Tom Wilson, Washington Capitals, or Milan Lucic, Calgary Flames, who combine size, physical play, and scoring ability, reflects the league's preference for multidimensional athletes over one-dimensional goons. I4. Counter-arguments and analysis. Alternative viewpoints. Despite mounting evidence against the traditional goon role, some stakeholders argue that fighting and physical intimidation still serve important purposes in hockey. Traditionalists. Proponents, such as Don Cherry, longtime commentator and former NHL coach, contend that policing and fighting prevent cheap shots against stars by enforcing a code of accountability among players. Fans. A significant portion of the fan base continues to support fighting, citing excitement, momentum shifts, and emotional investment. David, 2019. According to a 2022 Ipsos poll, 42% of Canadian hockey fans viewed fighting as a unique and valued aspect of the game. Players. Some players have spoken out in defense of fighting, emphasizing its role in team bonding, self-policing, and emotional release. Former player Paul Bissonnette insists, "A well-timed fight can change the momentum of a game." Addressing objections. Critics of the movement to diminish the enforcer argue that over-policing by referees fails to prevent dirty play, and that skilled players are more frequently targeted without on-ice protection. Some teams feel that having at least one tough guy on the roster discourages opponents from aggressive play against their stars. However, research by Adam Gretz and others demonstrates that the decline in fighting has not led to an increase in cheap shots or injuries to skilled players, suggesting that improved refereeing and suspensions are effective forms of deterrence. NBC Sports, 2021. SCASH, complexities in enforcement. The transition away from dedicated goons is not entirely seamless. Players who can both fight and contribute offensively, such as Ryan Reeves or Evander Kane, remain in demand. Meanwhile, the shift in lower leagues, junior and minor hockey, toward banning fighting entirely, has raised questions about whether young players are adequately prepared for the realities of the professional game. Carleton, 2022. Implications and future outlook. Short-term impacts. Player development. Young athletes are being coached to prioritize skating, puck handling, and decision-making over brute strength and fighting ability. Roster management. Teams are increasingly focusing draft picks and contracts on multi-skilled players. One-trick enforcers face dwindling opportunities. League image. The NHL's international ambitions and broadcast partnerships benefit from a reduction in violence and an emphasis on skill. Long-term impacts. Regional variations. European leagues and international competitions have largely banned fighting, emphasizing that the North American approach may become isolated if trends continue. Player health. Continued advocacy by medical professionals for stricter head injury protocols may further shrink the role of fighting in the sport. Legal and financial ramifications. Ongoing lawsuits from former players regarding brain injuries could spur additional litigation and rule changes at all levels. Recommendations from experts. Experts suggest multiple avenues to mitigate risks. Education and support. Expanding mental health resources for current and former players. Rule adjustments, considering further penalties or automatic ejections for fighting. Cultural shifts, encouraging respect and sportsmanship alongside competitive physical play. Next steps. Stakeholders acknowledge the need for more data on the long-term effects of head trauma, as well as ongoing dialogue between players, coaches, fans, and medical experts. The evolution of the enforcer role is likely to continue, informed by new research and societal values. VIth conclusion. The role of the hockey goon has shifted markedly since its heyday, influenced by changes in medical understanding, league policy, and cultural attitudes. Experts largely agree that the traditional enforcer, a player valued exclusively or primarily for fighting, has diminished in importance. Modern teams prioritize skill and versatility, and the NHL's direction is echoed by changes in junior and international hockey. However, the debate is far from settled. Advocates for fighting claim it remains essential for policing the game and maintaining team morale, while critics, particularly in the medical community, cite substantial evidence of harm. The enduring tension between entertainment, tradition, and safety ensures that the conversation will continue. As hockey moves forward, the balancing act between these competing interests will likely define how the game, and those who play it, are shaped for years to come. References: Daneshvar, D.H. et al. 2020. Clinical Evaluation of Former Professional Hockey Players for Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy. Neurology. CBC News, 2018. Neurologist Charles Tater calls for end to fighting in hockey. The New York Times, 2015. Brain trauma extends to the ice, not just the field. David P., 2019. Why hockey fans love fighting. The Athletic. NBC Sports, 2021. Has fighting's decline harmed the NHL? Other sources referenced as appropriate throughout the article for educational purposes.